Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Irrational Passions review discussion. I am Auri O'Neill, and joining me for this deep dive into the long-awaited Alan Wake 2 is my partner, Alex Casey, as portrayed by Mike Burgess.
I can't think of an a Casey line from the game at the moment because there was a lot, but a Caseyism, but I have to be like, I can't, I don't even want to attempt to do the face
impression.
I can't.
I love it.
I can't.
That's perfect.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we're here to talk about Alan Wake 2, long awaited from Remedy, October 29th, 2023. It happened. We lived to see the day.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a couple weeks, and yeah, we've both finished it. I've played a little bit into a second playthrough, and we got some thoughts.
Yep, a lot to unpack from this very dense game. So we must podcast to survive, as they say.
Exactly. What were you going to say?
No, I was good. That's literally. I was just gonna make a terrible joke like that. That was it.
We need the light.
But yeah. I was gonna say, I definitely want to start a second playthrough myself. But I did this week. We're recording. Go get the platinum on it. And I went back and did the kind of busy work where it's just like, oh, there's some collectibles and things like video game things you can do in this game as well. So I went and kind of did all that stuff, and there's a lot of. Well, I'm sure we'll get into it, but there's a lot of cool side stuff, even besides all the main kind of story stuff.
Yeah, I did everything. My playthrough was 27 hours, which I guess is long for a lot of folks. I saw some people were saying you can finish it in 16 hours, and I was like, yeah. You and I had a very different experience.
Yeah. I noticed that too, where it seemed like people definitely took a lot longer to do certain things, or because I don't think I honestly, when I first beat it, binged it basically a weekend. So that I definitely felt like I moved through it pretty quickly.
Yeah. I tried to take my time. I was savoring it. I finished it on a Halloween morning as well, so I felt like incredible. 4 days, right? I took my time with it, but I really I had very long sessions, but I was in no rush to finish it. I kind of wanted to start overall thoughts. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit more about it, but do you have a score in your head? This is our review discussion. I'm gonna make this all.
Sure,
review,
yeah.
Put on my critic glasses.
The critical glasses.
Our Irrational Passions 20-point scale for everyone. So 1 to 10 with 0.5s in the middle.
Yeah. I would give it probably a pretty high one. It would probably be at least a 9.5 at least at the lowest probably.
Yeah, 9.5 is what I was thinking.
Yeah,
as well, for reference.
It's it definitely exceeded a lot of my expectations in many ways. It also in the idea of that, for me, I know is as video games I just enjoy playing. The survival horror genre is one that's has a lot of trouble grabbing me personally, and how I enjoy playing games, because it's that combination of one, they are scary and I'm a baby, and they just also can just, and when I play a video game, it's more of just I like to kind of it be the more unwinding time after a stressful day of work, or working, or I am taking in the other people's content, listen to podcasts or YouTube or Twitch streams or whatever, and playing a game. So games that can complement those kind of things are usually ones I enjoy way more, and survival horror games just do not really blend in either of those, in any of those kind of categories. But just from the natural of I like Remedy games. Even when Control came out in 2019, I knew even just playing that game and getting into it as much as I did, I was all right, I'm a Remedy stan from here on. I just want to see everything they do. I know going forward, there are going to be games I'm always super stoked for. So obviously then when Alan Wake 2 became a fully fledged proper sequel and thing, I was always knew I was going to be in for it, but I definitely, when they were going with the survival horror route, I definitely was oh no, I hope I don't fall apart. But luckily it just there's a lot of crazy moments in this game. Some like scary stuff, but some just completely non-scary and ridiculous things that like fit that kind of, I think, kind of the more specific Remedy brand that they've now hit with Control, and then they like have now just gone like a little bit further with it in this game. That I think just like, yeah, I still really like all the crazy stuff they're doing. So yeah, definitely. I'd probably argue like it's probably my game of the year if we were to do like a game of the year thing, even with like something like Tears of the Kingdom, which I loved a whole lot and still like a whole lot. Like I would still probably put this game even above that potentially, just because it is, it sets out to do what it does so well, and then also like exceed a lot of those expectations as somebody who like knows now that like they have like a more connected universe, or they want to set up a more connected universe with like things like Control, and they just did it all right by my book, even though I was kind of scared and stressed out a lot of times in the game.
Yeah, I was curious how the survival horror stuff went with you, because I know you're historically not a survival horror person. You do like Dead Space, though. Yeah,
Dead Space is like the one, and like usually I get more into like that kind of stuff because it is like the sci-fi bullshit that I really tend to like a lot.
Fair. Okay.
I've coined in previous videos, mainly viewpoints we've done, I am a slut for sci-fi, so I will show up for kind of any kind of weird sci-fi stuff. And like, you know, and I know like sometimes there's crossover that with like horror stuff. So like sometimes like this when it's sci-fi horror, I'll be down for it. But usually, if it's like outside of that, that doesn't really get me. So, but yeah, it didn't bother me as much here.
Good. I'm glad to hear. I think it's like this is going to be a great first survival horror game, I think, for a lot of people as well. In a similar vein to Resident Evil 2, because I think it's a good easing in to a lot of the less stressful mechanics are not as big a deal in this. Like there's a lot more ammo in this, especially if you go exploring and stuff like that. And they give you a lot of opportunities to explore, but they also put you in situations where it's like you gotta not make a lot of mistakes, or else it's you're going to pay for it.
Yeah, you're screwed.
And I think that's a better balance. I'm so pissed that this and Resident Evil 4 came out in the same year. Because they're both like pushing a lot of buttons for me. So for me, I'm also like 9.5, shy of a 10 for me, because I ran into a lot of buggy stuff, unfortunately.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I played on Xbox Series X for point of reference. I definitely had to reload, restart many times.
Oh, wow.
And there were audio issues that was happening where the audio would just completely cut out, or only character voices would completely cut out. I'm like, all right, well, I'm here for this very specific
this thing. I can't. Yeah.
So I gotta quit out. I gotta reload from last checkpoint. It wasn't like a big deal. Not a game ruiner whatsoever, but it was something that happened enough times. So I was like, I wish this wasn't happening this many times.
Yeah.
But I
for sure.
I just wanted that to be clear. And also a patch went out today that they were recording this on Xbox that supposedly addressed audio issues. So subsequent playthroughs on like the higher level criticism things, like I do wish there was New Game Plus ready right now, because boy, I just want to start like carry over my stuff. I want to max out all my stats and stuff.
Exactly.
I want that, and stuff like that was in games like Resident Evil 4, for example, right from the get-go. I didn't have to wait. It was there day one. And it doesn't need to have all that. And again, this is kind of their first time doing this. The Control has never had a New Game Plus mode, for example. You can walk around after you finish the game and do stuff and level up and whatever, but it is not that same. So this is kind of out of their wheelhouse, but it is a thing that's like, this would be better if this was here right now.
Yeah.
But like in the scheme of criticisms, that's like bullshit, basically. That's it's nothing to me. It's stuff that does bother me and I have noticed. But if you ask me even 7 years ago, like, what do I want from Alan Wake 2? Like, I couldn't have dreamed of a game this incredible.
Yeah.
like this that sets out to do such a specific thing that wants to flex all these different creative muscles, that has this thematic, consistency to its presentation that is incredible. Like, the best use of FMV in any video game I've ever played, from like transitioning in and out of it to like putting you in the middle of it to like putting it in the middle of you, like in what you're doing in your story. I was just like, I was so excited for that aspect of this game in particular. Like, I knew in my head what I'm looking forward to the most is like the weird TV screen scenes that you see in Alan's campaign.
Yeah.
Did not disappoint.
No.
At all.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
It like, I don't know how they could have exceeded my unbelievably high expectations.
Yeah.
But like, even just like, everyone knows about the musical scene at this point, right?
Yeah, I was about to bring that up, of just like how deep when we get into spoilers already. But yeah, I think we should just
that's because that's become like a selling point of the game, and they put it much earlier in this game than they did in Control. Like, I think on purpose, so more people would see it.
Because I guess I missed some of it being in the promotional material, because that or not the live action stuff, but the specific,
it's not the promo material, but like it's what everyone's talking about right now.
Yeah, basically. Totally. Like the musical part, like that was that's more what it was like when I talk about like exceeding expectations of like, I did not expect a fucking musical in this game, but like it totally works in the context of like what you play, and like how ridiculous this, like they have always been about blending kind of live action and like doing stuff in game. And then it literally being on like TV screens around you, or being in like you're like running around a big fake performance stage and TV stuff. It's just, it works incredibly, incredibly well. And like, I think that's the kind of stuff across this entire game, like is what makes me like want to like push this as like my game of the year, or like a game of the year, because like I feel like it really is more about pushing. Although it's like a sequel to Alan Wake, but like it does more than like I feel like a sequel does, and like pushes everything. Like I could see like what a video game is and can do like forward in a way that like not a lot of other sequels to games this year have, even though like they are absolutely incredible games. Like this just like pushes it as like a way to like tell a story in a game and like present like different things inside a video game forward, and literally all they're doing is just like doing an actual like a part of like an episode of a TV show or something, which like we like was joked and memed on in Quantum Break.
Yeah,
but like I think like something like Quantum Break needed to happen so that like Remedy could learn and like get to this game, which like it just shows that like the level they take this is to something else, and they like hit so many high marks with all that stuff across the game, and it's so cool.
And a lot of this stuff, like I would argue, Control also did. Yeah. Obviously, Alan Wake 2 is doing it better, and I'm glad. The thing is, like, as much you and I love Control, we've talked about it a lot. And yeah, it's one of my favorite games of all time now, just because it is like perfectly the weird fiction game, right? Yeah. It's like it is weird sci-fi, the video game.
Yep, 100%.
And it's awesome, and I'm so happy. Or like the X-Files video game of my dreams basically exists. And it did stuff like Dr. Darling being a character that only exists in FMV, but you feel like you're interacting with in such a meaningful way.
Yeah.
And now like there's multiple characters in Alan Wake 2, Alice Wake, who this whole other story that happens on Alan's campaign, Mr. Door, right? Like there are multiple characters that kind of only exist at an arm's length from you, the player, but they make them feel integral to the experience. And those parts of the game are effectively a TV show or a movie.
Yeah.
But like, and a lot of, I've seen this positive critique thrown out a lot too, of like how this is like truly the most multimedia video game experience like you can have. And I agree. Like Quantum Break was such a stepping stone for this. Like I am, and I know you are too, like the person that like watched those episodes of the TV show that were not very good, you know, but like I watched through them, and you know, literally all it really does is kind of set up the world and then a boss fight at the end, potentially, or that boss fight doesn't happen. And that's kind of like underwhelming, but here it's like whole parts of the game you're only seeing through a screen. They feel so meaningful and impactful to the story, to the characters, to what they're doing. The characters are addressing what is on the screen and interacting with it sometimes, kind of like Jesse with Dr. Darling in Control. It's incredible. It's so well done. The sets, the costumes, the actors, the performances, like it's all that perfect like threaded needle of weird. And to what you were saying, like how this is Alan Wake 2, when they said like, hey, but like Saga will be a good POV entry point, and we think people that didn't play Alan Wake 1 will still get a lot out of this game. I've not believed that ever, but like after playing the game, I do like actually believe that. I think this does a great job of catching you up, does a great job of like giving you kind of an outside perspective of someone that's learning the rules, and then just getting you in the thick of it so you're ready to understand and have fun with the cool stuff in the game. And I'm like also very impressed by it on that level, you know?
Yeah, that was definitely very impressive to me too. Of just like Alan Wake is the original one's like you said, like a 13-year-old game. I do still like that game, but it's a 13-year-old game. It does not the best controlling feeling game, and it held up. And like even when you play that game, like it's a lot to like, even that old game is a lot to take in without kind of conveys the story to you, and like having to make sense of it, where like this game definitely even made some aspects to me like more clear, and was like, okay, yeah, like, and they do that by like, using Saga to like a really great degree of like what you do when you're playing as her, and seeing it, and like her seeing it herself, and like her being she's an FBI detective, and like working with Alex Casey, and then like being detectives, like working through all of it to like make sense of it. And like, and in some ways, like I really enjoyed that aspect of like they're definitely their back and forth, and like them trying to be like they think they're in the story but not really in the story, and are they in that, and that kind of like mystery that always plays throughout the game is really cool. And I also really enjoy that like they also just kind of like very quickly accept it as like a thing that's happening, and they're not just like, this isn't real, this isn't happening. They start like playing into it. They like, I really liked how they played Saga as like more like she understands, like she's like very quickly like sees some crazy shit going down, and it's not gonna like, and you don't spend like a 25 or a good portion of the game with her being like, nah, whatever, this stuff isn't happening, and then suddenly she just gotta go like, like that happens, like that transition happens like almost instantly in this game. So I really appreciated that, of just like, they're like, yeah, we're in some crazy fucking like horror game or horror story becoming real because Alan Wake wrote it, or maybe Alan didn't write it. What's going on with that? And then like, that's happening, and let's just keep figuring out how to get to the bottom of all this, and like if that becomes the actual story. And I really appreciated that, instead of just kind of going for like the more tropey stuff that they could have went for with her.
Like the typical skeptic detective type.
Yeah.
Right. They instead went for more of like, it's kind of like an Alice in Wonderland type deal.
Yeah.
Where you're just kind of going deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole. And then you realize everyone around you is like, everyone is part of the story now, right? It's not just, it's her and Alex, right? I really like the split perspective. We've had a lot of great games with multiple protagonists this year, which I'm stoked about. I'm learning that I actually really like that. I like seeing the story from multiple perspectives, and boy, do they make like doing that so different in this game too. Two separate video games.
Yeah, so in some ways, it's cool how they kind of blend their different styles. Where like Saga feels like when you're playing her sequences, that feels like more like, that feels almost like the first Alan Wake game, where like Alan's stuff is like something else entirely, and just kind of crazy and like
it's more controlled.
That's a good way to put it. It
not
is
exactly. It is abstract and
it's abstract and just like a lot of weird stuff going on, and like the use of like, again, I think like another thing that like really makes this game work for me as well as again talking about it from like the blending of the medias, but also just like them having the technology power to like flick on, like like with Alan's big thing is he has this like light and he can use it to like literally drain the light out of a thing, and that like warps the reality around him, and you can like, you're just like real time just like making hallways appear in and out of these spaces, or like opening up areas, and just like, because it's like that's like a thing with these current gen consoles that like you can do it instantly, and like it's all really cool every time you do it.
This was a big thing for me. I think like not only is it doing everything with video and seamless transitions between you and video, like in Alan's story you will see a screen of him in FMB form, our boy Ikavili, acting his pants off, and you hold the A button or whatever on other devices to like zoom in and then become that wherever that is. And it's just instant. And they do that with the lamp, like you said, right, where you're taking these lights and then putting them in places to open up pathways, and just instant using those like Ratchet and Clank ass loading times. And also both characters have like their different iterations of the Mind Place. It's effectively a 3D pause menu, which I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was really cool for sure.
So Saga has her detective mind palace, the Mind Place, and Alan has the writer's room. And again, the Mind Place, there's a lot of story that happens with the Mind Place, and it is an interesting, ambiguous place. I just love the transition to it. I love conceptually. I've always loved the Mind Palace idea. Right. So I was into it. You got your threaded board in there, but again, you're just going in and out of it instantly. It's where the map is. Like the map can exist in a physical place. I also love that. And then on Alan's campaign, it's the writer's room, and on like a narrative level, like that is also all there is. It is like it's kind of an inverse of Saga, right, where she's going into this fictional mind palace in her brain, but Alan is going back to what is reality, which is just this one room, and that's all the dark place is for him. But he is then going to this fictional reality that the gameplay. It's just,
it's crazy. It's
wild.
Way
they use like thematic symmetry like that between the two characters is so good, and it's all the time. It's happening constantly. Like this is the Alex Casey that Alan is meeting in the dark place in his campaign. That is the Alex Casey from his books. And then Saga is with the Alex Casey that is the real Alex Casey that perhaps Alan psychically saw and visions because of his kind of inherent writer power, and wrote his books about, not realizing it was about a real person. And that's for people that are like, whoa, it's like that's what Alan Wake's about. It's great. You should get in on this. Like the way that those two things are just so perfectly framed on opposite ends of each other, and you're getting these similar characters, or like the same character but interpreted two different ways through two different perspectives. It's just like it's so well done. It's excellent, and they explore the space, right? Like they take that idea and then they flip it on its head every way from Sunday. They go all in on every idea that they present to you, and I love it. The narrative in this really game, cool. I think, is incredible. And like I like that. I liked it, and maybe didn't like it just because of the like ability to kind of like. I feel like they could have done one thing they could have done a better job, though, at least in my opinion, with it just a little bit, was that they could have had better moments to like have you kind of go like, okay, you should probably, before you do this part, go leap in and do like the Alan Wake story part or the Saga part, and like have them like interweave those a little bit better, just because like I
I see why they did it the way they did, just because like that it's like it's ultimately it's just freedom. It's just the player freedom, the player choice. But I would have liked to like a little bit more pushes and maybe a couple spots, because there's definitely a point where I felt like I was, or at least I was waiting a little bit for it, I guess, where I think you kind of start a saga, and then you jump, and then you go to and do your first part as Alan, and then and then it brings you back to saga, and then it kind of starts with that at least, but then after a certain point it's just kind of like, all right, you can just kind of do it whenever. So I naturally just kind of kept playing a saga for a little bit, and I'll say like, okay, let's see if it takes me to this natural point where I need to go back to Alan. And like I kind of got a certain distance in the game, and realizing like that was probably not the case. So I was like, okay, well I don't know how these will come back around now. So I like ended up having to go like play as Alan, and then I was like doing it. It made some stuff make more sense in some regards, but some ways it just like felt like it would have just been nice to like have a little bit more of like a cohesive moment, because otherwise it's like there's so much going on in this game at times, right? So it's like doing multiple sequences as Saga, and then having like, you get those scenes where it's like slight visions of like her trying to talk to Alan, and they're having basically two completely different conversations you learn as you go through more or less to each other, as they're trying to like talk through, like Saga's essentially trying to talk to him in the dark place. And like missing those beats, like I would have been able to follow it a little bit better in some places, but overall it works out fine, and like it didn't like destroy everything or make everything fall apart for me at all. But it would have just been, I would have liked to have like that better kind of direction of like, okay, now it would have been, I did this sequence as Saga, and now maybe I can just go do Alan's bit here. Or maybe some of those,
it's like, hey,
beats.
You can do side stuff, but then you should switch over to Alan or something like that,
right?
As each character, I ended up doing like 2 chapters as one character, and then switching 2 chapters as next. Just once you unlock the ability to switch, which I think is like in chapter 3 of Saga's story, then you play the first 2 chapters of Alan's story, and then you're kind of set loose to be free. Yeah, I don't want to get too much into like, maybe at the end we can talk about like how the stories are, but like, there's 2 manuscripts, and then one is Initiation, and that's Alan Wake's campaign effectively, and the other is called Return, as we've known for years it would be called Return, and that is Saga's campaign. The weaving of the narratives, aside from what you're talking about, which I do think is a really fair criticism of like, I wish there was like moments where it was like, okay, it's time to go to the other side.
Yeah.
Some Dream Drop Distance-esque moments, like my meter fell out, so it's time to go. I think giving the player the freedom is like, it's putting it on the player, but it's also like the least amount of complaints you're going to get.
Yeah.
Which makes total sense to me. I think it was just, I love that kind of stuff. And there were things that I wanted to happen of like, okay, if we're going to do 2 characters and 2 kind of separate campaigns, there's like a thing I want to see happen. And we do get there eventually. And then when we got there, I was like, oh,
yeah,
so good. Like, I can't believe we got here, and it's as good as I wanted it to be, but better. Yeah. And I like, they're completely different mechanics for both campaigns, right? And they're similar. But I also like they're completely different upgrade schemes. There's completely different collectibles. There's like everything that you would expect from one game. Each has like their own set of all things. It's like Alan's got these. He's using the Alan Wake stuff, right? The glowy spray paint that you can only see with a flashlight, which was a big part of the first game. It's like using these to collect like words of power, which are like skill points, basically.
Yeah.
And those will give you like more inventory space or better handgun ammo capacity or things like that, upgrade everything. And that's like using its own mechanics. There's caches that a character that kind of ends up in the dark place as well. I don't know if we want to talk about Tim Breaker. That's like a whole
Tim Breaker is something else. Like, what in the world? Yeah,
it's great. I love it.
Yeah.
And then on Saga's end, you have like these lunch boxes that are Alex Casey, because there since Alan Wake 1, there have been Alex Casey movies based on his books.
Right.
I love that also. It's just a perfect like little nugget for them to mine of great narrative storytelling. There are these Alex Casey movie lunch boxes with like parts or manuscript pages that you use to upgrade your guns, and there are caches from the cult that Saga's hunting, and they have like wild puzzles associated with them. Let me find my iPad because I have literally like a page of written math for this fucking puzzles. I know I could have looked it up, but I was like fully immersed in Alan Wake 2. So I was like drawing math out.
When I was like playing through it, like before I finished it and didn't do the cleanup, I definitely took my time and like figured out a lot of those and stuff. And then the other one, which you do is Saga, where the nursery rhymes and stuff, like those are always
the nursery rhymes.
The nursery rhymes are really cool. That was like one of the last things I did. And I will say, like, again, this being a now Control and Alan Wake are connected universe, and then whatever Remy does forward, I will say, like, if you didn't do all of those nursery rhymes, I would recommend it, because there is like another cool little extra, there's tons of it through the main campaign of just like you straight up meet somebody from the Federal Bureau of Control, and some of their things, and like how they're kind of already sort of were monitoring this area. Excellent.
Literal map. Sorry, audio viewers, audio listeners. And then I have like symbols that I'm writing down for the
crazed symbol scribbles, and
I love that. But I
it's cool.
And there's like riddles and stuff. There's like environmental puzzles. There's a lot of different kinds of puzzles. I was like, and there's they kind of contextualize it in a universe of one of the characters that is leaving behind the boxes likes puzzles. So they are challenging the people that are supposed to be looking after these boxes with puzzles, which is very funny. Also, it's just very Alan Wake, and the whimsy level is right on. But yeah, some of them are math, straight up math. There's literally like a solve for X fucking algebra puzzle. That was the one I wrote down. Some are like follow the flashlight paint and stuff like that. And I as someone who plays a lot of Resident Evil games and the remakes, I love the remakes. Resident Evil 4 remake, I adore. I don't think it like hits the same FMV crazed high that Alan Wake gives me, but I think it is like a better action experience, if depending on what you're looking for. But the puzzles in those games tend to be very similar to one another and repetitive. And I didn't expect this game to have as many like mainline puzzles as it did. Like there's one point where you have to get a screwdriver, and you have to and it's associated with one of these puzzle caches, and you have to like look at members, like employee of the month board, and figure out like the order of employees or whatever that would translate to a number code for this thing. Like I thought that was fun. Like there's cool stuff where I'm like poring over the environment, and the environments are so beautiful and detailed, and like there's so much great stuff to farm there. It's so cool that there's a purpose to some of the details in it, a
lot of like cool like stuff like that hidden and like it's like I will say like there's like a lot of really well hidden stuff in this game that like you'll just get, because I definitely will say like it's cool that like I like how they kind of introduce maps, but like man, it still would have been nice to have like a little bit better like visuals on some of those maps for certain things. But I will say like once I started cleaning up and doing more collectible things, there's like charms you can get that you can equip on the Saga specifically. I don't think you can with Alan. I don't think he has charms or whatever.
That's another thing. Like again, totally different. Mechanics,
but they're like little like you can equip up to 3, and one of them is straight up just like, hey, when you have this on, you have like it'll like mark stuff on your map as you get near it, or like so you can just like, that's basically what I did once I found that charm, is I went back through a bunch of the areas you could go through and we're just pull up the map and just wait and see when like things would pop up and other things you could find. So
yeah, that's awesome. There's a similar word of power for Alan. And again, nice. You're similar checkboxes for both characters to get them in a place that is going to be potent. But I like, like they have different skills. They have different weapons. They both have different shotguns. Like Alan gets the flare gun, but Saga gets the hunting rifle. Like little things. I could have gone for more guns, right? But the addition, like the crossbow is new, and the way that worked, I thought was really cool. Being able to recover bullets.
Yeah, I like that too. And just like, I think like I do agree though that like the action aspects of this game were like not necessarily the reason I showed up for anyway. So it wasn't like that big of a deal that they weren't like, it does not feel as like nice of a shooter as like maybe some other third person action games, but like that didn't really bother me because it's
great though.
Because it wasn't like terrible, but yeah, it's also not really ultimately what I was showing up for anyway, because I knew it was going to be like a more survival horror-y and like a little bit more just like wandering and meandering through like tense environments and just wanting to kind of see the story. So I think it all works fairly well overall, from like a moment to moment gameplay perspective. Like in terms of like scary stuff, there's a decent amount of jump scares in the game. But like yes. I will say though that like even though they are
I'm ready for them at this point.
Yeah, exactly. like they are frequent enough, and they all kind of do like the same exact thing where there's just like a flash of like Alan with like a crazy black smoke messed up face, so like they kind of just stick in that realm and like don't really like there's not like monsters that in the game or anything crazy like jump at you a lot of times, stuff like that. So I think that stuff was generally fine. Like the more things that were like I think they nailed in like the actual horror department is just like there's an atmosphere that like hits across the game and the environments when like either you're like playing as like Saga and you're like just like in the forest and like it's like dense and you're just like you have trails and stuff, but it's just like okay, like this
dark.
It's just like dark and just like there's it's like you just see like a very small light in the distance and like it's all very like it can feel like disorienting and like a lot, because I definitely again with like the nature of how the maps are where like they kind of give you some trails but they don't really like give you like full on directions per se. So like there's definitely times where I just like or it's like you have the map but like the objectives maybe aren't like fully clear of like what you need to be finding or getting to. So there's a lot of times like at least especially in the earlier parts when I was still like getting a handle on the game, I would just get lost and then you're just like in this scary ass like dark forest and just like a lot going on and like that like there's always that just like atmosphere and that like kind of like set like threat level of like all these spooky dudes gonna show up, and then on the other end with Alan, like there's like when you're in like the city part and it's not really like it's like dark but it's not like scary because you're like in this like city streets and stuff. But like the way they get around that is they just have the shadowy people who like sometimes will like come after you and sometimes they'll just kind of hang out and like they do my least favorite thing in a video game probably ever and just randomly go wake. And I'm just like every time that got me every time when I just would just be like walking around like slowly walking, you just hear one of them just go wake. And I'm just like immediately as I heard it, I'm just like fuck, and I just like you tense up and I'm just
it is really scary.
These motherfuckers about to just pop off and start running at me or something. So like that, they like nailed that kind of stuff in the game.
Yeah, the environmental, the atmosphere, like you said, that it creates. It's just like it looks great, insane at points. Like moments when you walk out into a vista that you see for the first time, it's like, oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah,
it's like
good.
crazy. Like there is like a nursing home level in Saga's campaign that you go to at night. It's like one of the few levels. Most of the time, you are like in the late afternoon, like it's daytime.
Yeah,
but you're going into dense foresty areas that are pitch black, which is great. and just great. Great use of lighting and all that. But yeah, there's this point where you like walk out into the backyard of the nursing home, and there's like a little river with a bridge, and it's raining, and it is just like, and it's so tense at that point because there's things happening that is like somebody might be in danger. It's like very tense.
Yeah.
And just I remember that moment in particular was like one of the ones where I was like, I felt like that drenched in rain, sweating, looking for someone, like
tense
in the dark. It's so well done. I was so pulled in. And yeah, like the Nightmare New York that Alan's campaign takes place in. I feel like I get on this high horse every time I talk about a survival horror game, but this is my reminder to everyone that they should play The Evil Within 2. That is actually a very good video game. And a lot of, this game, much better. Alan Wake 2, much better than Evil Within 2. But it has the aspects in it that I thought at the time Evil Within 2 was very unique for, of like quasi open world areas, big areas that you have the freedom to explore, approach from stealth. There's no stealth in Alan Wake 2, which is a bummer, but it doesn't necessarily need it. But it has like that open area design that you can kind of come from multiple angles. And they don't use combat too much in this game, I'll say. Like, I feel like it's used pretty sparingly.
Yeah, it feels like it's just like it, because it's not like there's. Well, I guess when you're going through like the main campaign, there's like definitely set up like more like fight sequences a little bit, but
there's
like
fights, but
like largely, yeah, it is just, it feels like it's more just like, it feels like they kind of tried to do like a more like a random occurrence almost of like, as you play a little bit, you might run into stuff here, but sometimes you won't, and sometimes when you'll like circle back to this area and there'll be like enemies there again at that time when you circle back. And I think it's just because of those, like, you're kind of like, some of the areas you're in are like fairly like large open areas. Like there's like a few, mainly in like Saga's case, they're like a lot of bigger like kind of like open areas almost that you're like walking around. So like it feels like it's more like emergent rather than just like set action pieces,
which is good. It feels like there's not too much combat, which is a criticism I have of Alan Wake 1, for example.
As
a game that didn't need as much combat as it ended up having.
And like funny, this game
like, feel like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. And I also think this game does a lot of the things that Alan Wake 1 did with some of its set piece moments, but like does it better too.
Way better.
Where there is like straight up like, if you played the first Alan Wake, there's like a almost like a music, there's like a not the musical sequence we were talking about, but there's like you're like defending a point and it's like a concert and music is playing and you're like fighting off waves of enemies and being like thrown like ammo and like light up sources and things. And there's a part of that in this game that like I think is just way better done.
Yeah, it's super fun.
And it's like super cool.
Tense.
Yeah. I liked a lot as well.
Speaking of like the environment, atmosphere, like all of Nightmare New York as established, I'm a big fan of dream nightmare worlds in video games. You can do a lot with the space, right? And I think at this point, with all the games I've played, a lot of games are all dreams, as it turns out. It's it's a thing where and Alan Wake, I'll tell you, I'm one of like the 7 people that played Alan Wake's American Nightmare, which is, there's a lot of stuff that they pulled from American Nightmare and put in this game, which is cool. The time loop stuff is a thing that gets brought up in American Nightmare of like having to repeat or do ritual type things, which also comes from Control. And it all being like a fake environment that's in the dark place, like that's all of American Nightmare as well. But that game's, it's not amazing. And the environments are not like very exciting, right? It's like, oh, there's a desert and there's a spider cave in it. Ooh. And that's like kind of as exciting as it gets. Here, the Nightmare in New York, like I'm a big Max Payne fan, so like Alan's campaign being kind of a Max Payne campaign, very good for me.
Yeah.
And it's like that kind of vibe of New York, always raining, always sad, nightmare with shadow monsters everywhere. That's great, but like they built it around these kind of specific set piece environments: the subway station, a movie theater, and most importantly, the Ocean View Hotel, which is like one of my favorite levels in this game, and just one of my favorite sequences in video games this year, because it has, if you play Control, you know about the Ocean View Motel. This is like maybe a different version of that in a different reality.
Yeah.
And it has the things that I like about that place, of it being kind of weird and spooky, and there's doors with all these symbols on it, but now it's like a whole hotel. And I love hotels. I like the vibe of hotels. I like hotel levels in video games especially, and they just do so much with it, and they do so much with the main levels for Alan's campaign in general.
Yeah, because again, like the big whole mechanic of those things, right? Like, and I think what you're saying and why I think some of that stuff works so well is you literally get these like plot points that let you rewrite the sequence. So you'll be like, in the Ocean View Motel, and you'll be like walking around a room or walking around like this environment trying to like solve a thing, and you'll come to a thing, and then he'll be like, I need to do this, and then like you'll get like a rewritten thing that's like, oh, the cult of whatever showed up here, and now they've had this influence, and then you like basically apply that to like the sequence you're in, and it then like changes the environment, and you'll like go into these different, and it'll change the environment to like open up new paths or like add other things to like explore in the areas. Like I definitely found myself as like the weird sicko completionist gamer. Like whenever I'd get one of those, I would like go back into areas and like swap it around, and it usually never did anything. But like the fact that like
sometimes there's like extra rooms and secrets for you.
Yeah. But the fact that like lets you do that like largely was like cool that like they still thought of that instead of just going like nah that's not needed here. So,
and it's just, again, like the in Alan Wake 1. The way they illustrated Alan like rewriting reality for the most part was him like shining his flashlight on words that would turn into objects.
Right.
And that's fine. And it was cool at the time, but I was like, I really hope they don't do that again.
Yeah.
In my head going into this, because like that's in that, it's in American Nightmare, and it's neat, but like to me, you're in a room, like the first area is like a subway station. Right, like the first chapter for Alan Wake that he explores is like a subway station. There's 4 scenes in a subway station, and there's like a derailed train. Right, you go through the environment, and you're getting like audio logs from Alex Casey of him like in the environment, in the fiction, investigating the cult that is in the fiction obsessed with Alan Wake. Great, all great, and so he is listening to this fake story that maybe Alan wrote at some point when he was in the dark place, of Alex Casey in the dark place hunting this cult. And he's getting ideas from that. And then you're cutting to the writer's room, the pause menu that you're instantly cutting to. Load times are great. And applying this idea to the scene in your story of this world that you're writing into existence, with these characters that you're hearing that you maybe wrote. And it's just like, again, then you cut back to reality, and you see the typewriter going, and the world just changes right in front of you. And like, it's stuff like that it's like, this is what I wanted. I needed this, of like, this is what it feels like to be Alan Wake rewriting reality. And they just pay off on that in just like the puzzle solving mechanics of the whole campaign. You're doing this dozens of times, and applying different scenes, and you see crazy shit all the way to the end. Like there's new stuff that you're seeing in these like rewritten reality scenes that you have never seen before, all the way at the end, and they're all so cool. I just, it really, really made the dark place stuff, like, even though dream video games, I'm iffy on them in concept, but you got, there's a high bar. I think they really explored the space and did awesome stuff in between of like, you can go back to this puzzle that you had already solved with the idea that changed the scene, and take like all the late game ideas that you get, and it's like, okay, let me see if this maybe opens something else up, or what this looks like, and how that fleshes out the story. And there is stuff for everything. Every scene has all 4 options and something to see in all of them. It's just so impressive.
Yeah, really cool.
I'll say on the Saga end of things, right, like her equivalent is the investigation board, which I think is less impressive, obviously, because it's not like tied to the mechanics. I think it's really satisfying as a vibe. I'm not grading games on vibes, but it is like, it makes the game feel like a detective game. Like, honestly, it scratches like point and click adventure style gameplay, like things that I like, but I don't think I ended up like not doing a lot of those things, and it'll like auto complete if you come back to it, which thank God, to like kind of catch you up to what you need to do. But there are times where you have to go into the investigation board and put stuff together. I can feel a little bit more tedious than the writer's room.
That's definitely with some of my early struggles with that too, of like not realizing that like, oh, you need to like put these things in the board directly, otherwise like you won't get like the next little beat, or like some things won't like trigger or activate like in like for like the next story beat. Or like I definitely had a couple times like that where I was just like, I would like wander around trying to like find the thing I need to interact with, or like the thing I'm just like, I'm not finding this. Like I don't know if I'm missing something. And then more times than not, it was I open up the case board and like, had noticed I had a thing, and then I would place it in the right place. And then she would like, give you like an explanation of like a thing, or like she solved,
or dialogue option,
or like Saga's like solved this thing, and then says the thing, and then you come out, and then it's like, okay, now the story's progressing. Okay, got it. So, and
with that, like, you'll have to put stuff on the case boards to open up more options in the other thing that you do in the Mind Palace, which is God, what do they call it? Profiling. That's it.
Profiling characters and stuff.
In this world, in Saga's world, profiling, not what it is in the real world. She's basically like telepathically interrogating characters. And they could be characters that her character has not yet met. So there's just wild stuff that happens there. It was one thing that I was like, I don't know how like on board with this I am, but I'll say as the game went on, like I became more on board with it. Like they eventually it hits a crescendo point where it's like, no, this is important to the story. Like, I know you thought this was just a dumb weird thing, but no, actually, like this is actually really happening. And I was like, okay, now that you've committed to it on this level, I actually really like this.
I think I had a similar moment where it's just like this was like the one time where I felt like they leaned really hard into like the thing that was cool in Control, where you'd see like the weird like after image or like overlaid like live action kind of sequence while you're like standing in an environment, and a really cool way to like portray that in the game, where like this game like this like almost happens like I feel like almost every 10-15 minutes, like even sometimes even more than that. And like it still largely like works and is okay, but it was just like there's a lot of that. But then like you said, there's definitely like a turning point where they kind of like flip it on its head a tiny bit, and I think that seeing that and being like, you committed to the bit moment of like, hell yes, I'm in now. Okay, these are still really fun, and you're still doing fun things with it.
And the same with like the Mind Place, like they and the writer's room, right? They use these like these actual menus that you're effectively navigating. Well, like this is what I'm saying when I like the presentation of this game is just on another level, right? Like you're going back and forth between these two characters. They both have different menus and upgrades and everything, and environments. Like you're never seeing like the same thing as both characters, right, at the same time. And like that's so impressive for any video game, let alone like a third person action game, let alone like the follow-up to something like Control, which by comparison was much less ambitious, and I thought that game was very ambitious.
For sure.
So I think it's impressive in every way, And as someone who is like obsessed over the Alan Wake story, I've not like gone deep on the internet for Alan Wake 2 stuff yet, just because I'm like giving it a little bit to process.
Yeah, and there's still more coming out. That was like kind of like the last couple things I wanted to ask you before we like kind of like wrapped up was like one like, you know, it's slightly, I would say like this is kind of like spoilers, I would say a little bit more than what we were talked about, because this is like going to be a late game thing, but I just want to hear what your I kind of just want to know your reaction to a certain sequence later in the game. So, you know, spoilers, you know, spoiler warning for like end game, for like the late games. That's why I'm kind of throwing the spoiler out now, because this stuff is like, I think most stuff we've talked about is stuff you can see pretty quickly in the game. When the swap happens, and the swap
alluding to earlier.
Yeah, there's a moment in the game where essentially characters Alan and Saga swap places more or less, and then Alan is back in the real world, and Saga is in the dark place, and that's kind of like, it's pretty much like leads into like the ending of the game more or less, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'm pretty sure that this stuff is all in the, like, there's literally a point. This is
the last 2 chapters.
Yeah, it's like the point. There's a point in the game where it's like, if you go back, you can't go past this or whatever. Like, make sure you do everything. So one was just like that moment where like the swap finally happens and they kind of reveal a lot of stuff. But mainly it was you first take control of Alan, and you start going back through the woods, and the music from fucking Alan Wake 1 plays, and he gets like the classic gun, and like everything pops off, and I was just like, I didn't realize how much that was gonna fucking get me in this game.
I realized it, and I got like choked up. I was like, I can't believe like they're playing the music right now. Yeah, I recognize that. I've been playing Alan Wake 1 so recently. And he's narrating, he's doing the thing. I'll tell you though, what did bum me out, his narration audio cut out halfway through that sequence.
Oh, bummer.
Again, a bummer. But I will be playing this game frequently. So
that was kind of the last thing I wanted to talk about, was like besides that moment, like the game ends, and you know, there's, you know, they leave on a big, I would say like cliffhanger-ish. But
they got me with Alice, man. They really got me.
Yeah,
I want you to know,
it's pretty good.
I was upset. I was like emotional. I was absolutely like crying. There was tears were happening, and then when you kind of toward the end get to Saga and you're hearing Alice's voice again, I was like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah. And then
and they did the smart thing of like no final boss. Like they tied everything together. How did you like the ending? Did you feel good afterwards?
Yeah, I did. I like the kind of setup for stuff. Because I kind of didn't expect them to go like too hard into like teasing what is their next proper game. Like I don't think Control 2 is next, but I don't know. But there is also DLC for this game coming, so I'm curious. Mm-hmm. Like I think
both of which sound very good.
yeah. Considering like one of I think this will be a similar beat to what the second expansion for our Control was, right, where that kind of set up like Alan Wake being in the Control universe. I think like this one, because it's going to be the second one for this, is probably going to be setting up like what's the FBC doing about what's all this? FBC doing, maybe if it's controlled, maybe if it's set up for Control 2, or maybe it's set up for like something else, because I know like Remedy's working on like multiple games or something right now from like the last I heard. So yeah. But besides like the setup stuff, I did like the ending a lot. They definitely moves like a mile a minute, because you have like the swap, and then it's like, and then you're like it's like piecing everything properly together now, where you're just like, oh, he was was he writing this, or was Scratch writing this? What the heck? What's going on now?
And what really is the difference?
What is the difference? Yeah, is it just Alan's gone crazy, and then you know, a bunch of other stuff, and then they essentially have almost like a team up moment where they finally him and Saga like finally get together, and then they kind of figure out a lot of stuff, and then like you said, it gets crazier, because like Alice is talking to Saga, and apparently she was like, I guess, in the dark place the entire time, kind of.
Not the whole time.
Not the whole time.
After 2017, which is when the Control DLC takes place, right? So like, it's so interesting, and it definitely sets up for like there's more stuff to happen, and then like obviously the kind of the end of the game resets Alan back to the beginning of his story. To the beginning of the game is the first shot is Alan with the glowy hole in his head, and back to the beginning is the first thing he says in the game. Right, that's the opening line of the game, and the closing line of this is, "It's not a loop. It's not a loop. It's a spiral." But again, like I'll say, like literally laid in wake. Alan Wake in bed, awake, thinking about that line and how thematically it applies to the whole game in a very similar way to "It's not a lake, it's an ocean." Which they also excellent use of ocean imagery in the writing of a lot of the narration in this game.
Yeah,
excellent. A lot of like waves crashing description. Fucking love that. I was so into it. I just I wanted the record to show, Sam, I see you. And I love it. But like every time Alan sits down to write and it zooms out from the writer's desk, out the writer's room, through the door, it does a full spiral.
Yeah.
And it's like they're layering this visual cinematography, like these motifs of like when Saga is in the dark place and looks out the mind place, out the door, it spirals out. And it like they're very much implying things that I don't necessarily know if I fully understand, which is why I'm like waiting to go into my full deep dive of like, all right, theory kids, Reddit, let me know what you think.
Yeah, let's hear it. Yeah.
I'm excited for it. I just like, I'm processing still. It's been like a week and I'm like still like the layers of the meaning of the visuals of the like the repeated themes and things like are still hitting me, and I'm just so impressed by them. Like really truly, like I write notes when I finish games, and I usually write them while I'm listening to the credits. So I was writing like how I felt about it, and I was writing like I was devastated that Alice killed herself, and I was almost like pissed about it. I was like almost like not okay with it. Yeah. And then obviously they loop back around, and me thinking of like, oh, she's not dead. She like used her pictures to get into the dark place. Fucking hell. Sick as hell. Again, yeah. She's like, I remember everything. It's like this, I was so not ready for this, right? Because you do the end of the game, you're like, Alan's gonna die, like this is how it's gotta be, and I'm upset about it. But okay. And all this just starts happening, and then he's like, it's not a loop, it's a spiral.
Yeah, you're just like, what?
It's like full culture shock levels of just ripples. So I'm writing my notes, and I stop mid-sentence, and then I write another that I'm like, holy shit, the
post-credit
scene just happened. I don't know what the fuck is going on. Literally, in my notes, it's like, yeah, that's like a good ending. And I know like some people might not be happy with like the post-credit scene. The Marvel haters out there, I get you.
Yeah.
But like, it's a very, it fits this game and what it's doing very well, I thought. And anything that like recontextualizes the game and makes me want to go play it again. And now I'm noticing all the spiral visuals. And obviously they've been setting this up since Control, since fucking actually Quantum Break was when the spiral first showed up in reference to Alan Wake. So the payoff of it and being in it and like them being able to play in the space and show their creativity, it's just,
yeah,
I love it.
Yeah. And then something I also forgot about, since we're talking about all like the connectivities of things, is like how they use Ati in this game from Control.
Yeah.
He's like, he just shows up so much in this game. But like, and I thought like I think it was a similar thing to like the live action, like the overlaying stuff. Oh, something fell. That's fine. Just like he started showing up, and I was like, "Oh, cool. This is interesting." And like, you kind of see him a lot first in the Alan Wake side stuff. I think that's kind of where you first see him a few times, and then he starts showing up also in Saga's stuff. And there was the whole hours where it's like, okay, maybe they're doing him too much. And then they just kind of kept showing them, and I was like, okay, they're committing to Adi in a way that I'm now and I'm appreciating again, and just his use. And like there's like a really good moment when you go to that nursery. It's in that nursery home, and like he's like in the nursing home, like as like a person or something.
And so he's got a room. He has a room with his name on it, like he lives there,
and everything. Yeah, and there's a door, but there's a door like right next to him that has the spiral on it. And it's like, of course, like, if you connecting those things and seeing that stuff in Control originally, it's just like, oh shit, like what is, like, that's here, that's interesting.
And that's where the end of the game happens, right? Like,
yeah. And then but then like the first time you go to interact with it, he'll literally like appear. There's a moment where like you can go up to interact with it, and he'll just like appear behind you and start talking to you about it.
Scared the shit out.
Yeah, it's just like, oh shit, yeah, and then he starts going off, and then it's very good. And then like he has like earlier in the game, he has like a little musical bit that's very good as well.
So good.
Yeah.
They showed that in the promo material, but
yeah,
I was still happy to find it. Yeah, I mean, like everything with Watery that they do is great. The amusement park, the Ila and
Yako. Yeah, they're both really good.
They're excellent. They're so funny. So the FMV videos with them are so fucking good.
Yeah,
maybe like my favorite.
Bear. Yeah, that clip go around a bunch. It's perfect.
So good. Fuck the government. Yeah, I love it. The weird socialist commune that they have. Also, the very hard like self-insert of Finnish culture.
Yeah.
From the Finnish studio. So funny, so great.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, lean into it, have fun with it. Like I feel like they've been holding that back for so long, so that they just got to have fun with it here. And I also want to like before I'll wrap up here, but like I've been wanting to just shout out this incredible moment of like it's the first Mr. Door sequence. Mr. Door also great. Boy, I would have loved to see Lance Reddick's take on Mr. Door.
Yeah,
we were denied it. Martin Hatch, maybe the best part of Quantum Break. Period. So good, so intimidating. Lance Reddick, rest in peace. Love him to death. But I don't know the name of the actor. I can't think of it. They get to play Orland Door.
Yeah, I don't know his name. But I've seen him in a bunch of stuff for sure. Like he's like I saw his face and immediately knew him from like a bunch of stuff. So I was like, okay, yeah, he's a good actor. Yeah, I don't know his name though.
He's doing a Lance Reddick for sure for this, but like I'm here for it, and I loved Mr. Door. And there's a great Mr. Door conversation like right at the end of the game where I was like, oh, I can't wait to see you again.
Yeah.
But that first Mr. Door sequence, incredible just in general of like Alan, like he's going, hey, here's initiation, this book. He's like, I didn't write this. And then the second half of that where it's Sam Lake is there as Sam Lake, who is the actor who plays Alex Casey in the movies, who doesn't do the voice in the movies either, because it's just Sam Lake as he talks in that moment. He introduces the scene. And so it is Sam Lake as Sam Lake next to Alan Wake, who is a character he wrote, playing himself, who is playing another character that he wrote that is based on another character that he wrote.
Yeah.
Excellent. Just love it.
Yeah.
It's just
it's complete. It's just total absurdity.
Yeah.
In a fun way. That's
so fun. And it's like, if you don't know all this, it's just funny. Like maybe you'll realize Sam Lake is a developer by the end of it. But if you do know, it's just hilarious. I was giggling the whole time. I was so happy.
Yeah, I remember that point when he showed up in the interview in the live action. He literally just does the fucking Max Payne face immediately. Yeah. Like he knew what he was gonna have to fucking do when he did this thing. It's just it's so like meta in a way that's very like goofy and fun.
Yeah. That's Alan Wake 2.
Alan Wake 2, yeah.
Long awaited. Worth the wait,
Yeah, agreed.
The best thing
after Control, like I said, I'm full in.
All the way in. Stuff. I was in when Alan Wake happened. Like I was like, I so love that game. I played it so many times when I was younger. I was like a big proponent for Quantum Break. I love that when it came out. Control happens and it was like a dream come true. To me, like the best part of Alan Wake 2, obviously it's great, but it has become an entry point for a lot of people to Remedy. Like what it's like to play their games, and how different and unique and how much like genuinely of like trendsetters they are. And they're doing stuff that other people aren't, or they're doing stuff that people want to be doing, and they've been doing it for years, and they've been doing it very well. So like this game is just it's masterfully made. It is so, it's got so many parts to it, so many multimedia things. It is a great entry point also, which is great to say. And if you want to see more, like, I don't think like you have to have played Alan Wake 1, but going back after this, I think you'll at least get some appreciation for like, wow, they came a fucking long way in those 13 years.
Yeah, they stepped it up.
But yeah, absolutely love it. So excited to see what they do next. Any other final thoughts, Mike?
No, yeah, you pretty much said it all there. I think it's like I was in with Control, and this like just reinforced that, like how much I am a fan of their games now, and look forward to kind of whatever they do now from here on, and just them being their authentic self with this game, but also like stepping into like a survival horror thing, and which is something they haven't really done yet either.
Yeah,
really cool. And they nailed it. Easily. Like I said, it probably, like, if I don't think we're really going to do like a game of the year style thing for Irrational Passes this year in general, although it would be like fun with all the games to talk about. But I would say like overall, if I were to pick one, it would probably be this game, just because of the way I feel like the potential. More people seeing how good it is, and it seems like this like hit bigger even than Control did overall from the reception, and it feels like a game that people can look at even like a few years from now and see like it is able to like push forward and be something like more than just like, you know, another sequel to another video game we've kind of already seen. So I definitely really liked it.
Yeah, for me it's probably like number 2. Yeah, it's hard to take out my number 1. I don't know. I've been playing some Tears of the Kingdom again lately, y'all. And let me tell you, that's a fucking video game. But like that is doing similar things to Alan Wake of like, I didn't know video games could do this, right? Like it's just more my alley. But to think that like these so different, you know, like but technically impressive, like doing things that I've never seen before, or like excelling in your field, right? Like, you know what your lane is, and you're just gonna be the best in that lane, and that's kind of like what it feels like Remedy is. And it's just like, I love so many different kinds of video games. Cannot believe the swath that we have received, and I'm heartbroken at the cost of human lives that have kind of come out at the other end of it. But like Alan Wake 2 achievement should be celebrated. Go get it. Like if you know, assuming you skipped the spoiler part, please, I hope you did. Like if you wanted to get into like that weird thing, and also like if you want to live kind of like a true detective fantasy video game, like this game's gonna scratch that itch.
Definitely like one of the best like detective-y games I feel like I played. Even if it is just like you're just literally just looking at, you know, you have a little moment in the game, you're just like kind of, you know, almost like you say, like point and click, just like throwing things up on the wall. Like, but I think it's like fun in and of itself in a way that like kind of adds to like those moments in the game of just piecing it together and kind of fitting that the tone and like atmosphere of the game.
Yeah, it immerses you in the role for sure. But I think that's all we got to say about Alan Wake 2. I'm sure we may be back in the future with more things to talk about. At some point we will be, but maybe on the soon side. You know, follow Mike at MikeIP_. Follow me at Auri Means Wind. If you're listening to the audio version of this, there's a video version over on YouTube that Mike put together. And if you're watching the YouTube version, you can also subscribe to Irrational Passions Presents and hear the audio version of it. Either way, if you're listening, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you hanging out with us. As said, I've been Ari O'Neill, joined by my partner Alex Casey, as portrayed by Mike Burgess. And thanks so much for listening. We will catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.